Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. I am here to offer you tips and strategies and techniques to master your sales conversation. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to rebuild a tarnished reputation in business. This actually came as a request from somebody I'd worked with in the past, reached out to me after reading an article that I'd written about reputation and suggested that I do a podcast about this. And in that suggestion, had in a really vulnerable, tender moment, had shared with me that they feel like they have tarnished their reputation and specifically said, I've damaged my own reputation over the past number of years, specifically by having poor follow through, not keeping my commitments, and just generally taking people for granted. It's a hard but necessary pill to swallow, and no amount of marketing or selling is going to repair my reputation. So, the request was for me to offer you some strategies and techniques to see if there is a way to repair a tarnished reputation. And here's a spoiler alert, there is. And so, I'm going to offer some strategies and techniques and things for you to think about today that will hopefully help with that. And if there's some part of you that's thinking, like, I don't know if I would ever be able to admit out loud that I felt this way, but you have been feeling this way, then this episode is for you. And for the person who shared this with me, I just want to just pour love all over you for being able to acknowledge a mistake or a misstep. Maybe mistake is not the right word, but a misstep, because we all do them. We all have I think, at least me, I can say I've done them. I have made plenty of missteps and plenty of mistakes. And life has humbled me in really difficult ways. And it's it's nice to know that there's somebody out there that will still love you, will still believe in you, will still cheer for you. And if you need that person, I will be that person for you in life and in business for sure, because I think we all need those. And there's something about offering grace and for somebody who needs it in those moments. So, for that person who reached out to me, I am offering you grace and love. Okay, so let's talk about tarnished reputations. And I want to remind you that reputation isn't built on perfection, it's built on pattern behavior. So there are things that your reputation can be tarnished or can be built based on your pattern of behavior. So thinking about that's something that you can take control of it. And I hope that that is empowering because you have control over this. Your behaviors will make a difference. And yes, people might be out there shouting from the rooftops, you're a horrible person, or you've done this horrible thing, or, they don't recommend people buy from you because of X, Y, and Z. But one of the things that I know is that if your pattern of behavior is one that shows that you can come back, that you can be consistent, that you can do your follow ups, that people can count on you, that people can trust you, then over time, you will build your reputation back up. So hang in there, is what I'm going to say. Um, but this also, and I'm sure I've shared this probably on the podcast before, but one of the things that I always found really interesting in my sales career, especially when I went and was working at the manufacturer level. So when you work at the manufacturer level in the way that in the technology space and the way that we did business is that I sold to distributors and dealers. Some dealers bought direct from us as the manufacturer. Some distributors bought direct from us and then sold our product to dealers. And then dealers tended to sell the product to the end user, which usually was the corporate client or education institution. And and in the distribution model, the dealer model, there's a lot of manufacturers. There was a lot of competition in the industry that I was in. And my dealer and distributor reps used to say to me all the time, Nikki, you are the best manufacturer rep that we have. And you may have heard me say this on the podcast, or definitely if you've worked with me, you've probably heard me say this. I love a compliment. Oh my gosh, do I love a compliment? And I always like to know what a compliment means. So I usually will ask a follow-up question when somebody gives me a compliment. So when I would hear this, like, you're the best, manufacturer rep that we work with, knowing that they worked with quite a few different manufacturer reps, I always wanted to know, like, what is it about me that makes me the best? And people would often say, you return phone calls, you return emails, which in some ways felt like, wait, is that it? Like, is that all that it takes to be the best? Like, in some ways that's satisfying to know, like, I didn't have to continually like break my back, which I think sometimes I'll always try to go above and beyond. But okay, so consistency, returning phone calls and returning emails made me their best dealer rep. And then when I could show up and like really show them what I could do, then it felt like, all right, that was something. So remember that your reputation, it's not about perfection, it's about patterned behaviors. And I also think about this is, somebody who I absolutely adore, listen to his podcasts, follow a lot of his work. And you probably have heard about, maybe you've heard of him, Scott Galloway. He has many podcasts. My favorite is Pivot with Kara Swisher, who is also brilliant and amazing. And Scott Galloway has done many things in his career, but he talks about in crisis management. He gives these three strategies, this three-part framework for repairing a reputation when it's been tarnished in companies. And he says there's three things you have to do. So I'm sharing this and giving credit that this is not my thing. This is Scott Galloway's thing. But he says you have to acknowledge, you have to take responsibility. So one is you acknowledge, you say out loud, you own your part without excuses. Two, you take responsibility. You be clear about what you did or didn't do, and you avoid vague apologies. And then the third thing you do is you overcorrect. You show up better than before. You be proactive. You go above and beyond. And I was listening to a podcast recently, and he was talking about years ago. You might be too young, depending on where you are, age wise. That many years ago, there was an issue where somebody was spiking Tylenol. People were buying Tylenol off the shelf, and I think it was actually there were some deaths from it. Not many when you think about how many bottles of Tylenol was sold, but when you think about the way they handled it was like a perfect example of how to handle something. They acknowledged that it was an issue, and it wasn't like they were spiking. It wasn't an employee that was doing it, right? They took responsibility and they overcorrected. They pulled every bottle of Tylenol off the shelf. And I can't even imagine what that would have cost that company to do. But these are those things about like what it means to really show up and overcorrect. So I want to give you some examples specific to the things that this person had shared with me about what can you say or do when you find yourself in these situations. So, for instance, having poor follow through. And this is something that I will say many clients admit to me privately that they haven't been great on follow through and or follow up, and they have a lot of guilt associated with it, and they avoid doing it, and then it gets worse, and so then they don't do it at all, and it becomes this like snowball thing. So let's like not let that be the case. But if that is the case, what can you do? So how do you acknowledge it? First, you might reach out to a person who you want to earn back the relationship, and you acknowledge. So you might say, in the past, my follow through has not been good enough. And now you take responsibility. I should have been more consistent and kept you informed on your project or on the thing we were working on. You insert context there. I apologize. Please forgive me. And I'm committing to you now that I will do better going forward. And then how do you overcorrect on that? Well, one, maybe you set up a system where you send them a weekly update, or maybe it's a bi-monthly check-in. And you say to them, the purpose of this update or this bi-monthly check-in or whatever your thing that you're going to commit to is to ensure that you stay informed and you have a chance to ask questions when they arise so that you receive timely answers to your questions. that is like probably a big overcorrection. And I understand that that might feel big and huge, but if you're really looking to repair your tarnished reputation, it's going to be worth it because at some point they will be thinking about what it's like to work with you now, not what it was like to work with you back then. And or if they're comparing, they're going to see that things have really changed and it's going to start to build that trust back. So this will make a huge difference. Now, let's talk about what if it was that you didn't keep your commitments? Oh, this is a hard one. I can say I have found myself being somebody who can overcommit to things and struggling to keep up. And at some point, like things fell apart and I had to like pull back because I had overcommitted. And that felt like a real letdown, not just to me, but to the people I had committed to. Right. So I've been there. I've done this one for sure. So, how do you acknowledge it? One, you might say to somebody, I'm aware in the past that I've committed to things that I have really struggled to deliver on, or I've committed to things that I've really struggled to participate in. Like, that's another way to acknowledge it. And then you take responsibility. And you might say something like, I realize that my inability to keep these commitments have broken your trust. I apologize and I ask for your forgiveness going forward, or excuse me, and I ask for your forgiveness, period. Going forward, I'm going to be more realistic about what's possible and only agree to things that I can follow through on and deliver as promised or show up as promised. So I want to acknowledge in this one in particular that when you have overcommitted yourself and you're not keeping to your commitments, don't then say like you're going to now do everything and all the things because you're going to find yourself in the same one again, having overcommitted. So, this more is about communicating and being realistic. And this also means that you might have to learn how to, in a really nice way, decline things that people are asking for. That can sometimes mean declining business that you're not going to be able to follow through and commit on, or that might be attending events or participating in coaching programs or speaking at events, right? Like all of these things can be things that are over commitments in your business that you then have to fix. So the overcorrect here is really only like check in with yourself, have some kind of a process. So when somebody asks you for something, if you feel compelled to say yes, maybe now instead of saying yes, say, let me take some time to think about that and get back to you. And then give yourself a time, like put it on your calendar or put it on your to-do list, not the one that gets shoved to the bottom of the list, but like, okay, I'm going to think about this and I'm going to respond within 48 hours or whatever that time is for yourself as to whether or not I'm going to say yes to something. And before you say yes to something, when it has to do with commitments, I suggest you ask yourself these questions. First, is this something I can do? Yes or no? Is this something I want to do? Yes or no? And here's the third one, and this one you cannot let go is this something I will do? And be realistic and honest with yourself. This, I will say, was a really hard one for me to learn about not overcommitting and giving myself time because my initial knee jerk response when somebody asks me for something is always like, yes, I can do that. Like I'm a people pleaser and or I like to participate. Well, I used to more so than now, but I used to like to always be like in on stuff. But now I also know that as time, like maybe I commit to something that's like 3 months out. And as the time gets closer and closer and closer, I get more like I dread it. I lose sleep over it. I wish I didn't have to do it. I'm praying that it gets canceled. Maybe I'll get sick. Maybe I won't have to go. Like, and then I think, why am I living like this? This is crazy, Nikki. So now I have to ask myself, is this something I can do? Is this something I want to do? And maybe I should say, is this something I will want to do when the time comes to do it? And is this something I will do? Because if there's any chance that I'm going to pull out, then I need to go back to the person and say, thank you so much for thinking of me. This is not going to work in my schedule. And that is my answer. I don't need to tell them why it doesn't work in my schedule. I don't need to give a reason at all. It's just, this is not going to work in my schedule. And that's the end of it. So it's okay to say no to those things. All right. Now, the third one, using Scott Galloway's example here of acknowledge, take responsibility, and overcorrect. When you find you have taken somebody for granted, and in this case, the client said to me, I've taken people for granted. I want to always dig in and go like, is it really people or is it just one person? And it's one person that you're now generalizing and making it everybody. But without digging in here, if you have taken somebody for granted, then how do you acknowledge it? What might you say to that person? Here's a suggestion. You might say, I know in the past, I've not shared with you how much I value you as a person, or I've not shared with you how much I value you as a client, or I've not shared with you how much I value you as a partner. So please accept my apology for not acknowledging the value that I get out of our relationship. I'm sorry. And then that's your take responsibility part. And then how do you overcorrect? One of the ways, this is going to be my simple, hopefully easy to implement way to start to acknowledge people, is start using this phrase, I appreciate you. It will remind you to not take somebody for granted. It'll let the other person know that you're acknowledging them. And when you can say something specific that you appreciate about them, that's like extra credit here. So I appreciate you for being X, Y, and Z, or I really appreciate that you always show up prepared to our sessions, or I really appreciate how kind you are with your words and for sharing about this event that I'm hosting on, your social media platform or whatever it is. Like, give a specific thing you appreciate about them and it will make a difference. I've noticed that one of the most important people in my life, who is not a great acknowledger of people and has in the past taken people for granted, um, and frankly tarnished their reputation, and has had to learn how to build back relationship and trust with people. I've noticed that this person now says, I appreciate you, and says it often. Now, I spend a lot of time with this person, and I'm 99% sure this is a phrase they have picked up from me. And yet, it's fun to be the person to sit back and watch how people respond when this person says this. Now, this person says it sometimes when we've gone out to lunch together. We'll say it to the wait person, the wait staff, or we'll say it, to a vendor, or we'll say it to a family member. And people light up when you say this to them. So that's just that one way that it might not feel like an overcorrection, but for some people, it is an overcorrection because it's a big difference than what they were doing. And if this is something you've struggled with, this is my little like takeaway for you today. Just start using the like, I appreciate you. People really like to be appreciated. It feels so good to know that it matters, that you matter, that people see you, that people value you. And so when you can be that person to say to somebody, I see you, I value you, I'm paying attention to you, it really resonates and creates a deeper bond, connection, trust between you and that person, even if it's a small exchange, right? The person at the coffee stand or whatever it is. But just start practicing this one and see what happens. All right. As we move through this episode, the other thing I want to acknowledge here is that sometimes when you have tarnished your reputation, is to remind yourself that grace is available and it is not guaranteed. So some people will be delighted, maybe apprehensive, but still willing to give you a second chance to prove yourself, and some people won't. And you have to learn to be okay with this. You may have heard me talking about that there are times to bless and release. Bless and release, and how I would say that in this particular moment and in this context, is blessing and releasing your attachment to getting a second chance with somebody. to having somebody forgive you, because there will be times where there's just nothing that you can do to repair that particular relationship. But just because that relationship cannot be repaired doesn't mean that other relationships can't be repaired, or that you can't build new relationships with new people, with new clients. You can. And remember, like, you don't get to control how other people feel about you, about your past, about things that you've done. The only thing you can control is how you show up now, who you are now. Some people will always see you as this person that made a mistake, or this person that made this misstep, or this person that did this bad thing. And okay, there's nothing you can do to change that. We love to put people in boxes and say, like, it's like, I see this, I always think it's like one dimensional, right? Like, this person is one dimensional. They are good, bad, they are this, they are that, right? Like, one dimensional. But realistically, like, we're like diamonds, faceted diamonds. If you've ever seen a diamond, and you like, especially like a faceted diamond, right? Like, you turn it and it's got this new angle to it. And then you turn it and it's got a different angle and a different angle. Like, that's really how people are. And sometimes we will just say, like, nope, this person is one dimensional and I will never see them any other way. Fine. Spend your time with the people that are willing to see you as more than one dimensional, as the diamond that you are, and that, you can turn and you can make a change and you can be a better version of yourself. And sometimes, at certain areas or certain times in your life, and I say this in sales conversations, like, your performance will be within a range. We talk about this in NLP, like, your performance will be within a range. And on a scale of, 1 to 5, 5 being like your very best version of yourself. Like, when you're really on in a sales conversation, you might reach a 4 or 5. And when you're having a really bad day, you might be a 1 or a 2. And the idea sometimes is to get yourself from being a 2 to like a 2.5, because it's unrealistic when you're feeling like a 2 to expect yourself to be at a 5. Like, your performance will be within a range. But in life, there are times, and in business, there are times where you kind of are within a range. You might not be the best version of yourself, or maybe you weren't 6 months ago, or 2 years ago, or 2 days ago. And you can make a decision to make a change. You can show up and be consistent. You can take control over how you show up. You can't necessarily control how people are going to see you, one dimensional or multidimensional, but realistically, you can control some part of that, which is how you show up. And bless and release attachment to how people are going to make judgments, because they're going to make judgments about you. That's just the way life works. But what are some things that you can really do to rebuild your reputation? So think about the small things. Think about, how do you respond, whether it be in a tense conversation, whether it be in a respond to a client when they ask a question, whether it be responding to a lead that comes into your business. How do you respond? What's your follow through? What do you do to actually follow up? And can you be really present in that conversation or in that moment? Can you give people your full attention? If you're trying to do a million things, you probably are going to drop the ball. So what do you need to do to be present? Sometimes it's just setting things aside and saying, like, I'll come back to this thing that's kind of bugging me right now that I want to spend time on, but I really need to spend time and focus on this exchange with this client right now. Be present, be consistent, be visible. You don't have to be pushy, but be visible. Always actions speak louder than words, especially when you're thinking about rebranding your polished or rebranding your reputation, right? Like, actions always speak louder. Consistency matters. And then think about, what can you do with those relationships? Is there some action that you can take to start to rebuild? Like, for instance, what if you send a really heartfelt note to somebody. You could mail it, you could send it in an email, you could send it in a DM, you could send it in a text. Just letting somebody know out of the blue how much you appreciate them, even when it's a client, even when it's not a client, you might be really surprised about how you'll make somebody's day and how they'll remember that. And then start showing up, right? Like, for instance, with a client where maybe things didn't go as well as you wanted them to, maybe it didn't end on the terms that you wanted. What could you do now to repair that a little bit? Sometimes it's just about like engage with them on social media, start commenting on their posts, like give some shout outs, like pour some love on people, give some compliments, you know, do things to show them that you're paying attention to them because that those things do matter. And then last, make sure that you're only making commitments to things that you know that you can keep. So really challenge yourself there. It's it got me thinking about something that's happened 3 times in the last maybe 8 or 9 business days. 3 different instances. I've been really surprised um with 3 different types of feedback that I've gotten. And the message is the same consistently with these 3 in the last, like I said, 8 or 9 days, where people have been shocked that when they send an email that they get a response from me, that was somebody they were shocked that the response actually came from me. Somebody else was very surprised. They joined the Sales Maven Society and they were shocked that I was the person when somebody posted a question that I actually responded, that it was actually me responding. And then somebody else sent a message wanting to get on a call with somebody from my company because they had a question about something. So I immediately sent back a response, gave my phone number, asked for theirs, gave a time for us to speak. And then we got on the phone, like we got on a phone call within an hour and got their question answered. And at the end of it was like, I'm really pleasantly shocked, Nikki, that I'm speaking to you and not just somebody on your team. And again, like these are those things that really make a difference. Like show up, be present. I'm really surprised actually that people pay for coaching programs and then the coach doesn't actually show up. They have somebody on their team do the coaching. And I'm not making judgments about it, but like I will say, I would be a little disappointed if I thought I was paying to get one person and I ended up getting somebody else. Like I would be a little disappointed. I never want people to feel disappointed. And so sometimes I'm surprised that people are surprised that it's actually me. That when you join my group programs, when you sign up for trainings that I promote or offers in the marketplace, or if you schedule a work with Nikki call, that I'm going to be the person that you're talking to. I'm surprised that people are surprised by it, but it was a really good reminder as I was thinking about what I was going to put from a content standpoint about this idea of repairing a tarnished reputation. One of the things that I think matters to people is that they're talking to the person that they think they're talking to, right? Especially now with the AI stuff. Like, how disappointing would it be that if you think you're talking to me and it turns out you're talking to an AI assistant? Like, I'm not going to play that game. Like, no, you're going to get me. That's that's it. So, I know there's a lot of I think push right now to, you know, appear that you're a really big deal in the marketplace and so you should have a team of people that support you. Um, But if you're the coach, if it's your expertise, if it's like if people are paying for you, then they should get you. Like notice if you do that and if you've removed yourself from your business in this way. And again, you might have reasons for it. There, I'm not making judgments about it, but we're talking about repairing a reputation. If you have pulled yourself so far out of the business that people don't feel like they really get you, they get some like a lesser version that's not going to help your reputation. So if you really want to repair your reputation, then let it be you for the time being, right? I guess if for there's a reason that some way you need to pull yourself out. I have been pushed over the years many times. I've been coached many times from people encouraging me to have somebody show up and, edit my clients' emails for me instead of me editing them, and have somebody else teach my content instead of me teaching it. And maybe this is the old school version of me and the importance of reputation for me, but I just think if you pay me money, you should get me. And that will continue to be the case. And if your clients are feeling less than and they haven't been getting you, and you feel like your reputation needs to be repaired, one of the places you should start with is let yourself be the person who shows up. Be the person who responds to that email. Be the person who gets on a Zoom call with somebody to get a question answered. I've gotten on Zoom calls with people to walk them through the training center when they were like, I feel overwhelmed by this training center and I'm not sure how to use it. Then I always say, like, let's get on a Zoom call and let me walk you through it. And they're always so surprised. Do I have videos that talk about how to use the training center? Yes. But will it matter from my reputation that, like, oh, she actually got on a call with me and walked me through it and we had a live exchange and interaction? Yes, you can do that in your business. If you're so busy that you don't have time for it, that might also be an issue with the tarnished reputation. But know that things can be repaired and people can give grace. And if there's somebody who's trying to repair their relationship with you and you can find forgiveness in your heart for them and you can find a way to let them overcorrect and make up for it, I want to encourage you to do that as well, because it's a real gift to give to somebody. Forgiveness is such a beautiful, wonderful thing. And I know a lot of people talk about it. It has been my experience that a lot of people talk about it until something happens to them. And then reputation or forgiveness goes out the window, and it's just one dimensional. This person is bad, and they don't give any grace. And boy, that's really hard to be on the receiving end of it. It's really hard to be a bystander watching it happen to somebody you love and care about, and the people in your, you know, sphere. So I want to encourage you to be that person for somebody right now. If there's somebody who's trying to make a repair something with you, now, obviously, nothing that is going to put you in danger or is going to call into question your integrity. I don't mean that, but man, if you can offer forgiveness to somebody, please do. It's such a gift. Okay, we are going to bring this episode to a close. I hope you found some piece of this helpful. As always, I would encourage you to take one step today and think about what is something that resonated with you that you can take action on, because really implementers get results. And if you really want to make a difference in your own reputation or help somebody make a difference in theirs, what's something that you can do? What's one action? And if you feel inclined to share, or if you have a story you want to share with me, I am so honored when people take the time to write a story, to share something, even if you feel like this is too vulnerable, this is too, too hard to share. I can promise you I'm the person you can share it with. I can take it. And I can love you through most things. So, how about that? I'm wishing you continued success in all that you're doing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your day.